So what is a version control system? So anyone who are already using version control system or who know what a version control system is? Anyone?
Uh,
What is a version control system?
it's used to track like the changes that you make on your classes,
Okay, classes, you mean the files, right?
the files. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, version control system, let me begin with what it does. So what a version control system does? Version control system is something which can help you track or maintain versions of your files. Okay, it will maintain the versions of the files. It will maintain the backup of the files. Okay, it will help you have the it will help you allow multiple people working on the files. Multiple people can work on the same file at the same time so that the team can collaborate well. So how is this possible? What does it mean actually, and which files are this? First of all, these files are any files, okay? Like any program files, it might be C program files or a .NET, like a C# program files, PHP files, or simply some configuration files, or else shell script files, simply some configuration files, right? Or else simple text files also can be version control. Any static files can be version control. So obviously you understand who uses it. Yes, developers uses it. It is mandatory for a developer. The developer might be writing the code in C, C# or a Python or a Perl, whatever it is, because they definitely write some programs, right? This version control system can help them maintain versions, maintain backup of the files. What is meant by maintaining versions? What is meant by backup? All of them I'll elaborate. Please listen, okay? So yes, developers will mandatorily use it because they need to maintain versions of their code. It's mandatory for them. And also, yes, testers are also using it because testers do write some test cases, automation test scripts, right? So their scripts, their files should be version controlled. Please keep muted unless you have a question. Requesting everyone, please keep muted. If you have a question, yes, unmute and speak up. Thanks everyone. So developers uses it, testers uses it. So now how DevOps person should use it? DevOps person will not write the code. He don't write the code, but yeah, we have some configuration files. We have some script files like Ansible files will be there. We need to version control them. We have Kubernetes files, Terraform files. All those scripts, all those files should be version controlled, right? So even DevOps person needs Git. I'm talking about it from the perspective of managing the files. Okay, means like, okay, let's say I'm working with Ansible. I have some configuration, some Ansible playbooks. I need to version control them. So definitely I'll use Git. So today or else first we'll learn Git from the perspective of managing our files, version controlling our files, backing up our files. Okay, then we'll talk about how to use Git in the CI/CD pipeline. Okay, that also we'll talk about it. So let's begin. So what is meant by versioning? Okay, we said, okay, fine. Files will be version controlled. Backup of the files were done. Multiple, it will allow multiple people working. How is this possible? Let's see. Let's take a very simple scenario. Okay, this scenario I'm talking about without using version control system. Okay, let's say, okay, I'm not using any version control system. Okay, we are not using any version control system and we have our code base on some remote server. Okay, this is the remote server where we have a code base. Code base is nothing but, okay, let me make it more simple for beginners. Okay, this is nothing but a location or a server or where you have all the files of your project. Now there are two developers or DevOps person or two testers because anyone entering in IT should learn Git. So yeah, you may consider these persons as developers or DevOps persons or whoever it is. Let me say DevOps person because we are into DevOps. Okay, so there are two DevOps person. A want to modify a file, modify some Terraform config file with extension .tf. Okay, he downloaded this file to his system. Okay, at the same time, B also downloaded, another DevOps person also downloaded this file. A made some changes to this file and put the file back, isn't it? He have to put the file back in the project location. So he could put the file back on, let's say, day 1. So B is still making the changes to the same file, and then B put the file back to the remote location on day 2. So now tell me, this file is going to have which person changes finally? Finally, which person changes will be there on in this file?
I
Yes,
think
simple logic. I'm
we
talking about without version.
without version.
Yep.
Person
Yep.
B.
Person B changes. Why person B changes? What is happening? B is overriding the changes of A, isn't it? B's changes were overriding the changes of A. Here we are not using any version control system. So B changes are overriding the person A changes. Correct? So if this keep on going, B doesn't know that he is overriding A's changes. Similarly, A doesn't know his changes are being overwritten. Right? So if this continues, if this keep on going, what happens? The project goes corrupted. Project gets messed up at some state. Am I correct? Project goes corrupted, project goes messed up at some point of time. Because this is happening unknowingly. No one knows this is happening. So how to avoid this problem? So that's where a version control system comes in. Version control system is something which can help people work simultaneously, parallelly at the same time on the same file. Means use version control system. A may even be working on the same file, B may be working on the same file, but it will not override one person changes with other. Because see, we are DevOps persons, or we are maybe developers may be using it, testers may be using it. They concentrate on working with the files, making changes to the files, right? They have some other requirements to work on. They just cannot keep track of which person changes are overriding my changes. This kind of maintenance a person cannot do manually, right? There comes a need of a system called version control system, which will allow people working on the same file simultaneously or parallelly, right? It will take care of it because this cannot be done manually, right? So version control system will take care of it. That's one thing. Another thing is, okay, let's say something went wrong. Okay, the project got messed up, or the application got crashed. Immediately we want to find out the issue and remove the changes which is causing this crash. How is this possible? I'll repeat the scenario. Suppose there is an application, okay? The code for the application is placed on on a remote server. Something went wrong and the application crashed. Application crash means business goes down, right? Something went with the file, some configuration file was modified, something went wrong. Immediately it should be reverted, it should be brought back, right? So that the application will be up and working again. So how to do this? How can we find out what happened? Again, version control system comes in because version control system maintains logging. I believe you all know what is meant by logging. You
The
have
changes, yeah.
you have a history of which person made changes to which file at what time. The history should be so detailed, like, okay, person A made changes on main.tf file, okay, on line number 9 at 8:30 p.m. IST. So this kind of detailed history if you have, okay, application worked fine till 8:25 p.m. Okay, application is not working from 8:35 p.m. So what happened in between? So this kind of logging, this kind of detailed history can we provide manually without version control systems? Yeah, yes, that's again taken care by version control system, isn't it? So you know, okay, this change was made at 8:30, remove these changes, so the application will be back and running. Right? It's so simple. Otherwise, there might be some hundreds of configuration files. If you don't have this kind of logging, you don't know which file was modified, who modified it, right? You can easily track the person who made the blunder. That is another important feature, correct? So all these are the things which a version control system can help you with. Not only this, lot many things. Okay, I'm just here listing out the main features so that you can understand why you should learn version control system, right? So yeah, let's take up another scenario: maintaining, or I mean, more making changes simultaneously, logging, and then yeah, backup of the files. Okay, let's say, okay, you are working on some file, TF file, some Terraform config file. Okay, you are making changes and it's a version 1. There's a client requirement. Client came and they just want to modify this file and make it version 2. Okay, with some modification. Okay, you have overwritten the file or deleted this and made a new file and made this. Okay, after few months, clients just want to go back to version 1 because version 2 is not working fine. So, but you deleted it or you have overwritten the same and made V2. So if you want to bring it back again, rework. Don't ever delete the older versions, right? Always have backups. Don't overwrite, don't delete the older version. Maintain the versions. Okay, when you're making a change, keep the old file as it is as a version 1. Keep a version 2. That's what is maintaining the backups, right? All of this is taken care by version control system. So everyone, even a developer, of course, it's a life for developers because they always have huge number of program files. Nowadays, even DevOps person need it, testers anyway, they do need it, right? Hope you got the importance why we are learning. We have some configuration files, script files, all of them should be version controlled. You need a logging, you need to have a backup. So that's what a version control system does. I believe you got a first answer. Why do you need a version control system and what is a version control system? So version control systems actually were categorized. Okay, depending on the architecture, they were categorized as centralized version control system and distributed version control system. Based on their architecture, they were categorized. Okay, the functionality, everything is same. First, let me give you some examples of version control systems. GIT, SVN, TFS, Perforce. These are all some of the version control systems. There are many version control systems, but Git is the market leader. It is very widely used, particularly for the modern DevOps projects. Okay, the latest DevOps projects are preferring Git because of its strong branching feature, because of its robust branching strategies you have. Right? What is this branching feature and all we'll discuss. So this is a market leader. If you know working with it, maybe let's say there is some remote or small project where they're using some SVN. Easily you can switch to it. Don't try to learn every tool under the category because they are similar. Okay, when you know Git, yeah, you can easily switch. They are similar. The concepts are similar. The terms may be different. Okay. So yeah, these are different tools. Now based on the architecture, they were categorized. Again, distributed version control systems are used, like I said, in the modern DevOps projects. Git comes under this distributed architecture. SVN comes under centralized. SVN, TFS, okay. Perforce also comes under centralized. Then Git, Fossils, Mercurial, these comes under distributed architecture. Clear till this much, everyone? Any questions in this part? Anyone speaking?
Yeah, all clear, ma'am. Thank you.
Oh, right, thanks. So now, yeah, let's talk about the architecture of centralized version control system before going to distributed architecture so that you could really appreciate the importance of distributed architecture. To understand the benefits, to understand the advantages, you should also know the problems with centralized. So let's go. So we already discussed what is a version control systems. So they were categorized as centralized version control system and distributed version control system. Coming to the centralized, see here. So in centralized version control system, remote repository or the central repository, okay, where all the project work, all the code bases. And these are the workstations of each individual DevOps person. DevOps person 1, person 2, person 3. Each person will connect to this remote repository, get the code, make the changes and put it back. That's all is a centralized version control system. It's very obvious. It poses two main challenges. First thing is, you can, by seeing the diagram, you can understand the challenges. Network connectivity. Always you need to have network connectivity to connect to this remote server. If for some reasons network is down, network is disconnected, entire work will be halted. Right? You cannot work on it. That's the first drawback, first challenge. Second thing is, for some reasons, if this central server is crashed or lost or something happened to it, chances of recovery are very less. Why? Because it works like a single source of truth. All the changes were here, that's it. So if this is lost, yes, chances of recovery are less. So these are the drawbacks with the centralized version control system, which can be overcome by distributed version control system architecture. So let's proceed. Let's proceed with the distributed architecture. Yes. So if you see here, yes, again you have got remote server or central server. Here in distributed version control system, okay, this is the workstation of each individual person, DevOps person or developer, whatever we consider. So this is the workstation of each DevOps person. And every DevOps person will have a copy of the remote repository, which is called local repository. See this? Okay, this is a copy of central repository, which is called local repository. I repeat, in distributed architecture, we have two repositories, central repository or local repository. And the other one is, central repository or remote repository. And this is called local repository, which sits on the developer system, developer's workstation or DevOps person workstation. Each person will have a copy of remote. So how they make changes? Again, they don't make changes on this. Rather, they'll make changes on working copy, means some other directory called working directory. So they make changes on some other directory, move them to local. From local, it will be moved to remote. It's not straight away. From local to remote. You have to push to move your changes to remote. You have to pull to get a copy from remote, right? So it's a two-step, like actually from working directory to local, from local to remote. You cannot directly do this. No, that's not possible. Okay. So this is the architecture and this is how it works. So how come it overcomes the drawbacks of centralized architecture? Yes, because see, you don't need network connection always. You need network connection only to pull or push. These are less frequently used because we work on here mostly once complete work is done, we push, isn't it? Only once you push your changes, others can see your changes. If the changes are here, it's confined only for yourself. If you want to put it in the project, if you want to share it with others, you have to push to remote. So these commands are less frequent. Majority of the time you work here. Here you are working means you are just accessing your hard disk, which is quite faster. Right? Also, the working with distributed version control system is faster when compared with centralized because of this reason. So even though network is disconnected, you still can continue working here. Entire work is not halted. You can start making changes here. Only to push or pull, you need the version control system. Am I clear? Right? So that's the
Yes.
one thing. The second thing is, even though the central server is crashed or lost for some reasons, you can still have a backup because everyone is having a copy of it. Recovery, chances of recovering or is also more. Got the differences, everyone understood? A question from
One
Shahanshah, can you explain one more time about centralized version control system? Okay, I'll do.
one
Before that, any
one
questions in this distributed architecture? Shahanshah
yes, yes.
understood the distributed
One
architecture
question
first?
here.
Hmm.
Yeah. So one
Yeah,
question here, ma'am.
understood.
While repository, hello.
Thank you. Tell me, please.
Yeah. while we take the local repository, this local repository will contain only one or two branches, or will the local repository be cloning the whole server? So for example, if the Git's repository on the server is very huge, if we take the local, it will clone the whole repository to our local, or only one branch, or whatever we are cloning.
You can clone the entire repository, or you can also do partial clone also possible. Depends on your requirement.
Okay, and what is the usual thing that happens? Let's say, for example, our server is working and server is lost somehow, and we want to recover the data from repository. See, you told us that central gets failed easily, right? So,
No, central
so
doesn't get failed easily in case if it is lost, right? Other repositories, other persons will have a copies, right? See, when you clone the repository completely, yes, it can be recovered from you, or else other persons might have the copy. Chances of recovering is more.
okay, okay.
Got it? So this is the distributed version control system, and some of you are asking about the centralized architecture. Let me show you. So what is a centralized? See, you don't have a local system, local repository. You just have a remote repository. Okay, this is the remote repository or central repository. Everyone should connect to it and work on it. That's all is a centralized version control system. You don't have a local repository for a backups, or else you always need to get connected to the remote to work on. Shahan Shah, any questions here? Can you please confirm?
I mean, suppose if it should be work on network only, right? If drop network, what will happen?
Yeah, that's what are the drawbacks I already mentioned, we discussed, right? If network connection is not there, entire work will be halted. That's a drawback of the system. And chances of
Okay.
recovering are less. If this is lost, entire repository is lost because we don't have a backups. It's work like single source of truth.
And just one more time about distributed system. Now, not one more time, just
Distributed is every person is having a his own workstation. Every person will have a copy of remote repository. Okay, this is called local repository. Every person is having a copy of remote, which is called a local repository, and he'll be working here and then move the changes to remote. So in this case, even though network is disconnected, you still can work here on local. Entire work is not halted. You need network connections only to push and pull. Actually, you are working here. So network connection is disconnected, but still you can work here. Entire work is not halted like in the case of centralized version control system. And yeah, even though the central server is lost, because everyone is having a backup, chances of recovering is more. Maybe I can recover from here, whichever person has got a complete copy.
got it, madam. Thank you.
Any more questions on these decentralized and distributed?